Hey there, my name is AJ Pickett and I make videos about role-playing games, and lots of them. I upload twice a week with a live stream every weekend. You can also find me on Subscribestar, Patreon and Discord, Facebook and Twitter. Also, there's an option to join the channel as a member, and I welcome any questions you have in the comment section below. If you like this video or this channel, hit that like button if you would be so kind, and subscribe. Every now and then, I love to roll out a video like this. Another rare monster for you today to absolutely bamboozle the player who thinks they have seen everything. And I'm delving way back into the deep past of the literary origins of the game in the old Fiend Factory column found in ancient issues of White Dwarf magazine. These creatures were first discovered near a small village on the edges of the mist-shrouded Everglade region called Krish, on a prime-material plane world called Palaku, where simple villagers survived by selling snake and crocodile skins. Their dwellings nestled on top of poles above the dangerous waters, and nearby, in ancient and long-abandoned ruins of some dark temple rose from the weed-choked waters. Those who braved the Everglades to explore the dark temple found within it a great metal cauldron and horrific creatures which seemed to have spawned from it long ago in a most foul and profane ritual, and are now bound to it, renewed by its evil for all eternity. Thankfully, the accounts say that they were all slain eventually, but I'm not so sure. The local legend said that those who destroyed the cauldron would be rewarded with great wealth by the ghosts of who or whatever originally built the temple, and there are those who returned in large, flat-bottomed reed boats, almost sinking under the weight of the full sacks they brought with them. Others, who seek power in magic and forbidden knowledge, seem to have returned with another form of reward though, because it's not that long before, on another world entirely, a report of a cursed and protected cauldron surfaced, and a lengthy, difficult search through hundreds of thousands of tomes of Candlekeep seems to confirm the secrets of creating the Cauldron Born have now been spread by some wizard who went from world to world, or perhaps the secret was discovered by a warlock whose supernatural patron has passed this knowledge on to other pact-bound warlocks on other worlds. So it's safe to say, unfortunately, you may encounter such a cauldron nearly anywhere on the prime material plane, and most likely quite commonly in the dark plains of Hades, where night hags frequently make use of large and magical cauldrons. A hag lair is the perfect encounter location to slip the Cauldron Born into your adventure. They may at first seem like some magical effect that has been created by the cauldron while the player characters are getting on with the business of fighting an evil hag. In truth, it may be that the hag is not the master of the cauldron at all, but rather a student of the foul creatures who dwell within and close by to it, as they could, in theory, amass considerable knowledge and power over the potential eons of their cursed existence. Picture the scene. In what was once a damp and dirty cave, a massive cauldron sits on the bed of dark, slimy and tarnished rock, crawling with maggots and beetles which grow fat and sluggish, feeding on them. The air is thick with flies, and disease-ridden fungus smears the walls with growths that look more like fleshy boils and seeping wounds. The heavy and cold air smells like an exploded corpse, and a lurid green mist swirls around the character's feet, laden with the fungus spores that can cause fever dreams and flop sweats to any who fall prone and breathe the mist into their lungs. Strangely, while there are no signs of a fire ever being lit under the massive cauldron, standing as high as a grown man's chest, there is some thick and lumpy stew inside it, reaching almost to the very brim. The metal of the cauldron is difficult to identify. It doesn't seem to be iron or brass or even pewter, and certainly not a precious metal, not copper, gold or silver. It has a black look to it, yet there is a glimmer of some odd colour whenever bright light touches it. With some skill and a moment to scrape at the metal, it could be identified as being made of carefully cast adamantine, making the whole thing quite enormously valuable. However, who knows if the taint of terrible magic has seeped into this metal forever, no matter if it is reduced to molten form and reworked into some other use. As the mist is disturbed, there is a movement within the noxious stew inside the cauldron, and a fresh wave of stench assaults the noses of all present, and a glistening, large humanoid form begins to rise from its depth. As soon as the characters get a good look at it, the true horror of what they face reveals itself, as from the floor and within the hidden alcoves around the carefully worked stone surrounding them, more and more of the large and hideous figures lurch into view. from where they had been waiting and watching. Each of them slowly raises their dripping, slimy arms with bits of flesh hanging from exposed sinew and bone. In their powerful grasp, each carries a huge sword, pitted and rusted with age, but thick and sturdy, with wicked spikes and saw-toothed edges, and a hilt of precious metal and stone. None of the creatures speak, they merely glare at the intruders with bloated and lidless eyes, slack and horrid faces drooling slop like the corpses of a drowned man. As they advance and engage in combat, the players who take a moment to really look at them will suddenly realize with growing horror that these are not, in fact, undead zombies, as foul blood and fluids spurt from inflicted wounds. These wretched things are still alive, and their gurgling grunts and moans as they suffer damage means that they can still feel pain. The only rumour I have heard about these things being created was a rather fanciful account, more of a warrior's campfire horror story told among the Skypony tribe of the Uthgard barbarians in the far north of Faerun, which said that each of the large humanoids was originally the shaman of a different tribe of bugbears who were lured together into a trap by a powerful hag, tempting them with a secret alliance and access to unlimited life and great power to be shared among them. Which is actually true. The soothsaying powers of the shamans could not find a seat in the promise of the hag, but as they gathered around a great cauldron and the hag added their blood to whatever horrid brew sloshed around within it, bubbling with distant screams and sulphurous smoke, their souls were taken from their bodies, collected and gleefully sold by the hag in exchange for even greater power. The bugbears' bodies were left linked to the cauldron itself, not dead but not truly alive, their fate tied to each other as though they were not individual beings anymore, but one creature split up into multiple bodies who could no longer wander free but had to stay within a certain distance of the cauldron or slowly start to decay into a sizzling ichor, suffering a great agony. The hag never bothered to tell them this, of course, and each bugbear fled from the cave in terror, returning to their tribe, a soulless thing, their skin already beginning to peel away from their flesh, and no manner of magic could stop it or abate the pain until they returned to the cauldron and halted the decay, still suffering the endless burning pain of their injuries. The hag has long since learned all the magics and the secrets the bugbears had to teach her. It was easy enough to compel them to speak by simply snaring them and dragging them away from the cauldron again and again until they could no longer take any more pain. Now they simply lurk around the cauldron, wretched and suffering, unwilling to take any more of the abuse, even if it means they can end their suffering for good, because they know they have no souls. None of them will journey to Acheron to join Hrugek in the eternal battle. They will simply cease to exist, and even worse, they cannot kill each other without further weakening all of them, as they are linked together and they remember well the feeling when other members of the group perished long ago, and the many battles since then. So they wait, wallowing in their misery, only now and then getting to vent their anger on any living creature that ventures into their own collective hell, or more frequently, the victims their hag throws into the chamber to watch with her black and inhuman eyes as they are cut to bloody bits by her pets, further soaking the place in evil and suffering, pulling in fresh negative energy for the hag's own uses. Never forget, there is real power in the intense evil of hags. In game terms, the Cauldron Born are zombie-like creatures who do indeed share a single life force, so whenever one of the group dies, its original hit points are divided up among the remaining Cauldron Born, and the influx of vitality also increases their speed by 5 feet per round. However, each time one of the group dies, the armor class of each remaining Cauldron Born is reduced by 1 point. Being bound to the cauldron, they can't draw on it to regenerate their wounds, and it offers them almost no respite from their existing pain. But being taken away from it by more than 50 feet will cause them to decay. For every 10 feet beyond, they suffer a cumulative 1 point of damage per round, until they reach 0 and dissolve into disgusting slime, and their life force returns to the cauldron and enriches the others, along with all of the torment that they've suffered, empathically feeding the pain and suffering of each that is linked to the death of that body. The pain they constantly endure has rendered them immune to any effect that would charm or control them. Also, being within 50 feet of the cauldron gives them a supernatural endurance, much like a zombie. If damage reduces the Cauldron Born to 0 hit points, it must make a Constitution saving throw with a DC equal to 5 plus the damage amount taken, unless the damage is radiant or otherwise blessed by the power of goodness. If the Cauldron Born makes the saving throw, it will rise again on the following round with 1 point remaining. If someone throws a vial of holy water into the cauldron, this effect will temporarily end for 1d4 minutes for all of the Cauldron Born linked to it. This unnatural endurance also makes the Cauldron Born immune to exhaustion and any form of poison. They are so accustomed to their surroundings that they have the equivalent of blind sight out to 60 feet and are +8 on their perception checks, with a passive perception of 16. They take full damage from any magical weapon and any silver weapon, but only take half damage from any non-magical weapon, and they're immune to necrotic damage and resistant to psychic damage. I suggest basing their hit points and armor class on whatever base creature they were in life, and there's nothing spectacular about their combat abilities. They simply attack with a two-handed sword if they are able to wield one. So if they are challenge rating 1 bugbears in life, they have an armor class of 16, around 30 hit points, and would be +4 to hit, inflicting 2d6 +2 slashing damage to one target per attack, making a single attack each round each. And depending on how many members of the group there are bonded to the cauldron, this will make for a pretty ferocious fight, particularly if they have rigged the cave so that they close the entrance with some sort of falling boulder. The players benefit greatly if they can discover that the cauldron can be dosed with holy water, or say 10 points or more of radiant damage to shut down the supernatural endurance of the Cauldron Born. They also benefit a lot tactically if they learn that the Cauldron Born will only chase them as far as 50 feet from the cauldron before they stop and return to their lair. They will venture out if they are being pelted with ranged attack weapons though. They're not stupid. So, give out that information only if the players really work for it before the fight begins, or if they happen to discover this info during the fight, if they're exceptionally observant and lucky. There is nothing stopping you from giving the Cauldron Born additional abilities based on whatever sort of creature they were before this terrible fate, so spellcasting is possible, as is the ability to use any found weapons, and if they wish, including thrown objects and missile weapons. The adamantine cauldron is immune to critical hits from any source. It has an armor class of 13 and 95 hit points, with an immunity to poison and psychic damage, lightning, and cold. Reducing it to 0 hit points will cause it to split down the side, and the magic binding and empowering the cauldron will cease instantly, causing the Cauldron Born to start to immediately decay by 2d10 damage per round. There is no end to how you could modify this kind of horror encounter with the creator of the cauldron, the base type of creatures bound to it, or by giving the Cauldron Born additional special powers. For example, elven mages bound to it could unleash a banshee whale. Anyway, please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, check out my Subscribestar or Patreon links for all the full scripts for these videos, buy some Teespring merchandise, wear your geek with pride, and as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.